Hey, it's Karri Flatla here for this week's Friday Fire and Remax Real Estate, Lethbridge and KarriFlatla.com. So today I want to just give you a quick fall market update for the city of Lethbridge, and I always make the disclaimer that because I focus on city residential, those are the numbers that I'm pulling from. I am not pulling from the broader board numbers, which covers a lot of southern Alberta. Those markets are all very disparate in my opinion, so it's not helpful to someone who is, say, selling a house here in the city. We don't want to lump all the stats together that include rural farms, product that has nothing to do with selling a house here. So the numbers are kind of interesting. I pulled them in a little bit different way this time. What we're looking at is year-to-date numbers for the end of October. So January to October 2019 year-to-date, because there's a lot of talk right now about a big bounce in sales in the month of October specifically versus October of last year. I don't really like when the pundits talk about that and then don't give it a broader context, because if you have a really slow year from, say, January to fall where sales are really sagging, and then you have a great month in October, that just means that the market's playing catch up. That doesn't mean that all of a sudden the world has changed in real estate because of a blip for 1 month. That's just not how trend tracking works. So year to date in the city of Lethbridge, all types of properties, sales are down 3% year over year. Now we're talking not big numbers here, mid 1300s. I think it was 1355 last year and 1310 this year, but that's still 3%. So we're not seeing any jump in the amount of activity. And in fact, we're still down year over year. And if my memory serves me, I think that would be the third year in a row that we're seeing slight decrease in number of sales. And that really started, I believe, back when the mortgage rules changed for first-time home buyers a few years ago. And then it changed a second time about a year and a half later, where the Fed said, okay, conventional borrowers are also going to meet a stress test, and so a higher stress test. So basically people are having to qualify at a higher interest rate than what their contract rate is, and it's around 2% higher, maybe a little less. So the criteria for getting a mortgage is more stringent than ever, and of course here in Alberta that's making things particularly tough because we're still in a sagging economy. People are having a hard time qualifying. That being said, a little tiny glimmer of good news is that in the city of Lethbridge year over year, prices have increased a little bit. I'm still not getting excited about that, however. I think that's just a little bit of recovery. I think that's because buyers have now had time after those new mortgage rules to go back to their bank, to go back to mom and dad, to go back to their own finances, shore up a little bit better down payment, or get some of those credit cards paid off, and now they're back at the table. That's what I think is happening. I don't think that if you look at the broad macroeconomic landscape in Alberta, I don't think that buyers or business people or investors have a lot of big long-term reasons to feel super excited right now. We still need time for the new Conservative government here to do what it needs to do to get the economy back on track. There are some glimmers of hope, but it's going to take time. You just can't correct what's the deep economic crisis overnight, and not in 6 months either. So and Lethbridge, as I've said before, always feels the economic pain last. You can literally almost map it out. Looking at Alberta from north to south, you're going to see economic pain start up north, and it's going to sort of make its way to south. Lethbridge, because we're such high public sector employment and so insulated from broader economic trends in Alberta and Canada, it just takes a lot longer for us to start feeling the pain. So let's just see what happens. The other thing that I want to point out in this market update are some other statistics and metrics that really help buyers and sellers here in the city understand what they're dealing with. So days on market, if you talk to people in really buoyant markets, they would just be horrified by this, but cumulative days on market in the city of Lethbridge right now is tracking at 89 days, so about 3 months. If you're looking at that number by price point, I think that's where it gets interesting, because you always have sub-markets within a market. So if we're looking at under 400,000, that number's 85 days, and if we're looking at 400,000 plus, that number is 118 days. And I want to talk about price point, because that has everything to do with what you're dealing with as a buyer or a seller. Everything. Price point. So you can talk about averages, and that's okay, but when you start looking at submarkets within the city of Lethbridge, the story changes dramatically. So for example, if you're over 400,000, we have over a year's worth of inventory for 400,000 and up. That's all price ranges, so 400 to $1 million. That's only about 12% of the market here in Lethbridge. So as far as I'm concerned, 10 to 15% of the market, that's a luxury market. If your house is $405,000, you are a luxury home, and we have very few buyers who can buy it, and we have lots and lots and lots to choose from. Lots of really nice homes to choose from. Lots of brand new homes to choose from. Lots of houses that are less than 5 years old to choose from that people are trying to sell. So these are all things you have to keep in mind when you're hitting the market in these luxury price points. Your house needs to show 10 out of 10, but it needs to show better and be positioned better than dozens and dozens and dozens of other houses. If a buyer's coming into the city to look at houses for one day on a relocation move, they can't see all 50 houses in their price range. They might see 10. So how are you going to get on the short list? And then from there, how are you going to get to the front of those 10 houses so that they make an offer on yours? So again, it comes down to excellent marketing, excellent staging, excellent preparation of the home. You need to look like you are serious about selling your home, and you better be super sharp on price. That's how we get you to the front of the line, is you got to have all of these things working for you so that in the eyes of the buyer, your home is number one on their short list. Some other things I think are interesting is, even if you look at different pockets of the city. So one price range that I've been kind of working in lately and doing some work in with buyers and sellers is 250 to 300,000. North Lethbridge, there is 10 months of inventory. Now 250 to 300, in my opinion, is a very affordable price range. So we should have lots of buyers out looking. But for whatever reason, that pocket of the market, there is too much inventory right now. It seems like once you hit that 250 mark, and then the game kind of changes again. So lots of interesting things happening in the market, and they're kind of confounding, right? So average prices seem to be moving a little bit, although no one's getting excited. 3%, okay, I think that's just a little bit of price recovery. And you have to remember, Lethbridge has been in a flat market for years and years and years, since the last big bubble in the early 2000s. So when we talk about an increase, it's an increase relative to flat or sagging. So, nobody's getting rich flipping their personal primary residence after living in it for 2 years or whatever. So everything has to be super strategic. When you are interviewing a realtor or realtors to sell your house, I'm really encouraging people, do not ask about silver bullets. Do not ask about flashy marketing. Do not ask about, how many awards and plaques they have on the wall. You want to know what their performance metrics are, because how they perform for their individual clients, that's what's going to matter to you. Okay, you have 10 plaques on the wall, but how are you going to get my house sold in the least amount of time for the most amount of money with the best service? because you could sell 500 houses a year, but how are you actually performing for individual clients? And you really need to get that granular when you're interviewing agents. And every agent has their own way of doing things, and that's great. But to sell your house in this market, it is challenging out there right now. And every realtor worth their salt will tell you that, and then they will have a great strategy for getting the job done for you. And you want someone who's going to tell you the truth about what's happening in your market niche, in your neighborhood, in your price point, and what that really is going to look like to get, what's going to be needed, and how you guys are gonna work together to roll your sleeves up and get the job done. The longer you're on the market, because I'm still hearing this talk out there, is, well, we'll wait for the right buyer and the right price. Well, then the perceived value of your home is going to go down. Because the first thing a buyer says when they walk into a property that's been on the market for 60 days or more is, how long has it been on the market? And then the next question is, why? So you have lost your negotiating strength as a homeowner the longer and longer and longer you stay on, that you're on the market without an offer. So better to hit the market sharp with great marketing, great presentation, and get yourself to the front of the line of that year's worth of inventory. So that's today's Friday Fire. If you have any questions, just text or call me at 382-7335, and have a terrific weekend. Take care.